Welcome, everyone. For those that don't know me, I'm Filip Vucic, a Croatian business major specializing in planning and analysis. And today I want to tackle something that is, I think, one of the hardest things about running your own business, which is pricing. And my goal is to show you why pricing feels so challenging and give you actionable tools to make it easier. Let me start with my story first. 4 years ago, during the pandemic, I got hit hard because I had left a corporate job a couple of years earlier to take care of my dad. He's fine, by the way, but we didn't know it back then. And when the lockdown hit Croatia, it coincided with the biggest earthquake the city had experienced in 150 years. And that left me with no active projects because of COVID, a hole in my roof because of the earthquake, a small kid, and a very pregnant wife. And that's the kind of situation where you get creative. So, in one of these sleepless nights, I took what I've been doing with Croatian companies for a couple of years, mainly helping them with pricing, and applied it globally over Zoom, sitting in my attic at first. And it worked. First in Australia, which is still my biggest market, and then Canada, then the US, and all over the world. And here we are. Today, I've worked with more than 200 clients across 5 continents on their pricing challenges. And along the way, I've learned so much, not only from my own, I think, impressive collection of pricing mistakes, but also from theirs. And that's why I'm able to be here and to talk to you about pricing, particularly for services based on expertise. Thank you for joining me. I'm so happy to see so many of you here today. So let's dive in. So why does pricing feel so hard? Because it seems like it should be about math. And math can be hard, but with so little direct costs in expert services, it's manageable. There's tools that can help, but math is actually the easy part. And it's not what makes pricing decisions difficult. Pricing is actually hard because it combines all of our fears and taboos into one complex cocktail. It forces us to put our insecurities under a spotlight in front of serious people that we really need to impress just to pay our bills. So, not exactly anyone's idea of a good day. And here's the catch. No one has an incentive to teach you this, to teach you how to price. Employers focus on maximizing margins, not empowering you to price yourself fairly one day when you leave. Academia is just as lost as you are, and competitors, well, they certainly won't level you up, at least not on purpose. So you could work in an industry for 30 years, and as you gain expertise, you will improve delivery, processes, even client management through experience. But pricing? No. Pricing is something you're forced to learn on your own. And when you try that, it's incredibly difficult to do without stakes, just from reading from a book. It's like trying to learn poker without anything on the line. It doesn't have to be money, by the way. Even something as simple as the loser washing the dishes adds stakes. So if you're practicing, you can try that. Without that, real learning just doesn't happen. And the biggest challenge, I think, is feeling trapped in a rigged game. Charge too much, clients leave. Keep your prices the same, rising costs will eat you alive. No wonder raising prices is the least favorite activity for most agency owners and solo experts. So what do most people do? Let's be honest. It's mostly about guesswork and copying other people's guesswork, right? Which is something that then leads to financial strain, burnout, guilt, resentment, and worst of all, missed opportunities. The should have beens, These struggles might feel familiar, and judging by some faces I see, they're probably very familiar to some of you. And at least to some of you, they may seem inevitable, but they're not. At least not at this stage in your career. So let me share a quick story here. Do you know how circus elephants are trained? When they're small and weak, they're tied to a post. They pull and struggle, but can't break free. Eventually, they give up. Years later, when they're fully grown and strong enough to pull the post out with ease, they don't even try because they've learned that it's pointless. To the elephant, that flimsy string cage feels unbreakable. Fortunately, I'm not giving a presentation to elephants. And that's why we're here, ladies and gentlemen, to take a shot at breaking free. And it can be done. Let me share an example, which is David Hubbard, an Australian consulting entrepreneur and an incredibly talented professional. When I met him, he proudly shared what he thought was a great success. His last client achieved a 19 times return on investment from his work. Sounds impressive, right? To me, although impressive, it was a glaring sign of massive undercharging. Consider this. Most clients would be thrilled with a 3 times ROI. 5 times, exceptional. But 19 times? That's a red flag. Because it means either that you're massively undercharging and you don't really know much about the industry that you are in right now, or you gave the client a massive discount and the client now struggles to understand, what did you leave out? What are you so sorry for? You know? I mean, it's like offering to sell your car for $200, right? Who would buy it? There's something wrong with it. I don't see what is wrong with it, but something has to be wrong with it. Otherwise, you wouldn't sell it at this price. So, pricing actually wasn't David's only challenge. His offer structure was also chaotic because he had short engagements requiring constant renegotiation, which is everybody's favorite thing. I'm being sarcastic here. So 2 months here, 3 months there. This piecemeal approach left him overwhelmed, over delivering, and regretting just how much more impactful his work could have been if clients had recognized its value upfront. Together, we revamped this approach. We built a streamlined year-long offer price at twice his original rate. I'll explain shortly why that worked so well. But make no mistake, David is a true expert, a deeply intelligent, experienced, and professional person. But so, like so many others, he was spinning his wheels. A master of his craft, yet trying to do everything everywhere all at once, and the result was him being exhausted and regretful and being aware of chronic undercharging for extraordinary outcomes. So this space left intentionally blank for now. If we're the elephants in this story, able to break free but unaware of it, then the stake in the ground that's holding us back is fear. So fear of confrontation, fear of embarrassment, fear of making things worse. But most of all, fear of the dark, fear of the unknown, let's say. Because pricing is full of contradictions and confusion. So you've probably seen professionals charging well above market averages without issue for years, discounts failing to attract clients, amateurs undercutting the market, and the list goes on and on. None of these things should be happening, yet they are. So when I talk about pricing, I emphasize fearless pricing. Because once people understand what's really going on, what's really happening, they stop fearing the topic. Pricing moves away from being like death and taxes, those inevitable, untouchable things we'd rather avoid thinking about. So let's talk about the core problem. Over the years, I've talked and worked with diverse range of professionals, a gynecologist in Vienna, lawyers and developers in Croatia, coaches and designers in Australia, accountants, consultants in North America, and so on. Despite their differences, they all face the same issue. They're selling to people who are amateurs in their field. Because that's why clients need you. They don't know what you do know. They need to know this in order to solve the problem. We'll talk about this a little bit later. But here's the catch. Because they don't really understand your work, they can't see its full value, not even nearly. And nobody wants to pay for a value that they don't see. So if they did understand the value, which, sounds like a dream, but they would have to understand, in order to do that, they would have to understand your field so well, they wouldn't be clients anymore. They would be colleagues. So people who need you don't value you correctly because they can't. If they could, they would be colleagues. And colleagues know how good you are, but they won't pay you. They don't need you. They will, pat you on the back, but they won't pay you anything. So that's what I called a couple of years ago and kept calling experts paradox, right? Clients don't intentionally disregard your value. Not really. They simply can't see it. The people who can see it, like I said, are your colleagues or your competitors, right? So it's all a full circle. And yes, there are ways out of this, and this is basically the core of my work. But the fear and the expert's paradox are the core foundations. So I wanted to go through that first. So let's talk about value first, because value is a loaded term. Specifically, I'm talking about the value the client expects to see, because expectations are key. Think of your expertise as this big bright circle. Everything you know and you can do, and all of the effects, all of the results you can deliver, this is the value, right? Now, the client's expectations is this smaller box over here. The only value, the only part of the value that the clients can see is the overlap between the expectations and the actual value. Right? So yeah, there's this dark part of the box. These are expectations the client might have, but that you're not responsible for delivering. That they thought they would also get this and that from you, but you didn't promise that, and it's fine. They're not paying for it, they're not getting it. But all of the rest, which is not an intersection, they just don't see. And they're, of course, not comfortable paying for it. Only the overlap. So I know this is frustrating because you're objectively much better. But nobody buys objectively, they buy subjectively. Value in this sense, and for all intents and purposes in your life, is subjective. And perceived value and value are the same thing in the eyes of the client. So this is the core of the expert's paradox in action, right? And it also explains why adding more and more to your offer doesn't work. Many of you have probably tried this, like piling on extra features or services to justify your price, hoping that one day it will amount an irresistible offer that the client will say, "Wow, that's incredible, shut up and take my money." But here's the reality. If the client doesn't perceive the value, or most of the value, adding more doesn't help. If I enlarge this circle, but keep it just as far from the box, you will be on the hook because you promised to give more value, but the client won't notice and won't budge on the price that they're willing to pay. And that's a problem. So selling more expensive services is not about providing more or doing more. I know many of you here, and you dish out plenty of value already. It's about making the overlap, the perceived value, clearer and more compelling. And this is also why professionals skilled in consultative sales can charge significantly more than those offering off-the-shelf services at market average prices. Consultative sales focuses on uncovering and communicating value, while off-the-shelf services rely on standard pricing and minimal interaction. When people ask how my work makes a difference, how exactly do I help people raise price? I explain it like this. I'm this little guy helping push the box of clients' expectations closer to the center of the value circle. And a small shift can create a dramatic change in how clients perceive and pay for your expertise. So just to reference a number, my usual result is about 40% higher price after a couple of months. So you don't have to do much to do this because you already provide all of this value. It's just paramount that the client sees more of it. Okay. Here's what's really going on. So pricing is extremely simple in principle, almost insultingly so. Your price must be higher than your cost, but lower than the value clients perceive. Duh. Except this value is not the value that you see. It's the perceived value, the overlap with the box and the light from the last slide. The client makes the purchasing decision and doesn't really care about your margins. I have a problem with people focusing on margins because margins are important, but they're much more important in the physical world when we're not talking about services at all. Because margins, they tell you how good of an idea it is to sell your service. But they don't tell you anything at all, whether it's a good idea to buy your service. That decision is made here in the difference between the cost for the client, and we'll talk about that more, and their perceived value. So basically, in order to be able to successfully validate a higher price, you either need to move the perceived value further, you don't have to give them more, just make them see more, or reduce this. And this is something that I've made for an article a long time ago, which I called "Why the Margin Matters Not," because people focus on this and say, "Okay, my margins are good. This is a good deal for me." Yeah, maybe it is, but we have no idea if it's a good idea for the client. And what I've experienced time and time again, that the client would rather pay for something that has 20% higher this area, larger this area, and 100% larger this area than this, what you see right now. That would be a better thing for them, right? Because the client just doesn't care. If your margins grow thinner or larger, so never, I usually say to service providers, never talk about your cost to a client. They don't care. Why would they? You talk about their costs, you talk about their value, and that's the only thing that they can see, they can verify, and that's the only thing that they're going to make their decision on, right? And there's a fundamental shift, and the reason why I emphasize value so strongly. This is fundamentally different from commoditized services, where quantity often defines value. For example, 3 oranges are worth more than 1, and 6 are worth more than 3, because more is better. Same happens with commoditized services like car washing, right? More hours of car washing are worth more than less hours. Stands to reason. However, with expertise-based services, this rule really breaks down. Because would you prefer your lawyer to resolve your issue in a month or in a year? Yeah. Which dentist provides better value? The one that fixes your problem in a single visit or 3 visits? And would this webinar really be better if it lasted 6 hours long? No, it would be much worse. So, although I can't categorically say that it's always untrue that more is better in services, sometimes it isn't, but that makes it not a rule anymore. You can't rely on this being a rule. So, the idea that more is better simply doesn't apply to expertise-based services. Cool. If you can remember some other examples where more doesn't mean more valuable, more work doesn't mean more valuable, you can share it in the comments. I'll read it later. Right. So let's wrap our discussion on value with one final concept: experiential goods. These are services where the value is only fully understood after they've been experienced. So, a concept we'll explore next. Think about this. How often have your clients expressed surprise at how much they really gained from your service after the fact? That's the nature of experiential goods. Their value can only be fully appreciated once they've been experienced. And the challenge, of course, is that you have to sell your services before clients experience it. And when they can only perceive a small fraction of its value. This creates a problem for experiential services like yours and mine. And let me explain this further with the metaphor that I call a jar. Imagine your service as the contents of a jar on a shelf. You've invested in making the jar look appealing, but it's not transparent. Clients can't see what's inside, and you can't see what it says on the label. It does have a label, but since your perspective is from the inside, you can only guess. You can't fully verify what the label communicates. Clients can only understand two things at the first glance: the category of your services. So if it was a jar, is it a mustard jar or a jam jar or an ointment jar? And the price. So these two factors, the category, like coach, mentor, specialist, and price, will shape their expectations and are crucial to how they perceive your brand and your value, and of course, how much they expect this to cost. And this has profound consequences on how pricing works, right? Because you can only rely on them perceiving these two things. Anything else is tech talk, technobabble for them. And this is why I can work and I have worked with many industries, because you all have the same problem. You're all selling to people who need your services but don't really understand them. And if they don't understand them for different reasons, they can be legalese, that can be technobabble, doesn't really matter. They don't understand it and they don't see the value, and then we all get in trouble. Okay, let's go on. Let's shift our focus from your costs to the client's cost. Remember the larger gap, right? This one between the value and the price. And the wider it is, the more clients are going to be attracted to the offer, no matter the margin. Okay. While we as sellers think of price as the number we charge, clients experience it differently. Their perception of cost goes beyond the monetary value. The amount of money they pay is shaped by other factors, which we'll explore next. Take taxes, for instance. Clients pay them, and they are a monetary cost to the client, but they're not really part of your income, right? But beyond taxes, there are other, even less tangible costs that clients do consider. Let's explore three examples. Imagine your favorite hairdresser or chiropractor moves to another city, an hour and a half away. Their price hasn't changed. It's still the same amount once you're there, once you're in the shop. But for you, the cost is now much higher, because you now have to sacrifice half a day, pay for gas or for parking, and deal with the inconvenience of the journey. Even though the monetary price remains the same, the overall cost feels much greater to you, right? So that's the inconvenience cost, which goes on top of monetary cost, and you feel it as a buyer. Second one, would I send my kids to the cheapest dentist that I know? No. Would you? Why not? Isn't the lowest price the best price? Of course it isn't. And here's why. It's about the risk cost. A low price might save money, but it introduces other potential costs: fear, pain, phobias, traumas, or long term problems. When something feels too good to be true, that feeling of undefined risk prevents people from seeing monetary cost as the only factor, because it's not. And finally, there's the ego cost, the hidden price of humiliation or discomfort. Imagine a banknote on the ground, but somebody has spit on it clearly. Would you pick it up? Probably not. Maybe here's a better example. Would you attend a workplace provided marriage counseling if everyone in the office, every one of your colleagues knew you were taking it? I mean, it's technically free, right? It costs nothing in money. But would you really go? And if you would it feel like it was free? Not really. And what's the cost? It's the cost of ego. So ego cost can outweigh even a zero monetary price. I mean, all of them can. Like I said, with a car for $200 or, for free. I'm giving you my car for free. Hey, stranger, I'm giving you my car for free. Would you take it? Of course not. In all three examples, convenience, risk, and ego, these are services where trust is essential. You can always find a new dentist or counselor, but you're reluctant to switch because of what's at stake. This is, again, different from what we experience in commoditized services. Lower monetary cost doesn't automatically mean better value. Here's the rule. Clients will accept higher prices if the other costs, inconvenience, risk, or ego, are lower. If the whole package feels lower, then they will accept a higher price. Because you've probably heard the saying, nobody ever got fired for hiring IBM. That one got them millions. And why? Because IBM represents a very low risk. It's definitely not cheap, but clients gladly pay a premium for the confidence that comes with their reputation. And that's the key. Clients are willing to pay more when they perceive that the risk is low, or they have an ego cost of accepting something else, or if it's really inconvenient. And now that we've covered how this works and the behavioral science behind it, let's talk about what you can do next. They say the main difference between theory and practice is that in theory, they're the same, but in practice, they're not. Now that you understand the game better, let's talk about how to play effectively. First, you'll need some real data, which can be as simple as just having a few conversations with the right people. And if you're asking yourself, what's the right type of people? Imagine you got a wish from a genie, like Aladdin's genie, that from now on, every client you have will be a copy of a great client from your past. So same need, same complexity, an inflation-proof budget. Who would it be? Maybe you can write that down. Who would that be for you? You don't have to tell me, just know it. Anyway, that would be the right kind of person. And anybody similar to this can be worthwhile to talk to. Okay, second, we'll tackle the common thieves of confidence that undermine your pricing. And finally, I'll show you how to adjust your approach for raising prices with new clients versus existing ones, right? Let's break it down step by step. Okay, so first rule, stop asking how much would you pay? Or how much do you think is fair? It might seem harmless, but it creates a direct conflict of interest and hands the control of the conversation and your worth over to the client. Instead, flip the script. After explaining the value, the steps and the details, Ask them, how much do you think I already am charging? This shifts the focus and keeps you in control. And this isn't about fishing for information. Here's how to approach this. You write down your price beforehand. If you're in a virtual setting, type it into the chat, but don't send it yet. And say this to the client. So I'm writing it down. I'm just going to put my hand on enter. As soon as you say it, I'm going to publish it. So I'm not fishing here, right? Then you ask them, what do you think I charge? And as soon as they answer, you share your pre-written price or reveal your mobile phone or your piece of paper where you have written down the actual price. Just to show that you didn't adjust it according to what they said. This keeps the process transparent and professional. But this subtle shift avoids negotiation pitfalls and anchors the conversation in your favor. The client can respond in one of three ways. They might guess your price exactly, in which case, congratulations, you all laugh. If they overestimate, thank them graciously. Oh, what a compliment. No, not yet, but thank you, maybe someday. This is my current rate, as I said. If they underestimate, that's also fine. Own the moment and say, oh, dang, looks like I need to get better at explaining the value. The price stays, of course, but could you share what would make this service feel worth my actual amount to you? So this keeps the focus on improving communication without doubting the value that you provide. So if multiple clients overestimate your price, say 3 out of 5, so that they guess higher than you charge, take it as a sure sign you're undercharging. You're explaining your value better than you're charging, and you should raise the price. I've done this many times for myself. I've done this so many times for my clients. It is something that big companies can't do that easily. We can. It's one of our rare advantages. It's as simple as that. A couple of people hear you speak, overestimate the price, you have a clear go to raising the price to that level. So to level of like average of these estimates, right? Because your value already aligns with the higher price point. Okay, let's talk about confidence because you may be feeling a little anxious right now. Many people equate a competitive price with being low priced. But in expertise-based services, competitive doesn't mean cheap. It means confident. It's a fundamental shift in thinking, and I'll tell you why. So the logic goes like this. Clients seek specialists or experts only when their confidence drops below the severity of their problem. That might sound complicated. So let me give an example. So I'm 40, and let's say that my back starts to hurt. And at this point, if somebody offered me a budget-friendly chiropractor, I'd decline. Why would I pay somebody to tell me that I need to sit straight? Okay? I could handle it myself. Maybe pay for a cheap massage, feel better for a day or two, and just try to forget about it. So I'm not going to pay an expert at all at this point. And then one morning, I just can't move because of the back pain. At that moment, my confidence for handling the problem myself falls below my perception of its severity. Right? Maybe the problem was as bad yesterday, I just didn't know it. So my perception of the problem went up, my confidence went down, and now I need somebody to bridge the gap. This is the first moment where I'm going to start thinking about paying an expert. Okay? Because the problem feels bigger than my confidence. I simply can't rely on myself anymore. I need to borrow, I need to buy confidence from an expert. But even at this point, if somebody offered a budget chiropractor, I would still decline because, frankly, I know I need a chiropractor or some kind of back doctor, but I don't know enough about any of them to judge who's good or bad at their job. And I have a feeling since I can't move, I will need a good one. So again, as I'm willing to pay for expertise and confidence, and I can't verify expertise, I just won't trust a budget chiropractor. I won't trust somebody whose price feels insecure. Because if they're insecure in the value they provide, they likely don't know enough to solve my problem, which feels serious now. And I don't have time to research this. My back hurts, and I need the solution now. I have stuff to do. So, first, of course, I'll start asking around for recommendations. And if I'm lucky, some of my friends or colleagues will have a trusted expert to refer. And you all know that works. But what if it doesn't? If I don't get a recommendation, what's my choice? I'm left with, remember the jar metaphor, only two indicators that I can rely on. Whether a person seems nominally qualified, so it says chiropractor on the card, on the website, so the shape of the jar, right? And their price. And that's how I'll make my decision. Of course, I'm not an idiot. I know a high price doesn't guarantee expertise, right? But I can't afford to have this stop me because a high price signals high confidence. And if you're confident without reason, you likely wouldn't stay in business for long. So if you have a high price and you're in the business for long, then you must be good. Right? So to them, like I said, confidence equals a good enough signal of competence, the only one that they can gauge. So in that troubled state, I simply don't have time to seek perfection. I just need to see enough confidence reflected in the price and hope for the best. And once I find them, I want them to shut up and take my money. Just get me out of this, okay? That's what we all are, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we all are. We are vending machines for confidence. Clients put money in one side, and the other side comes extra confidence that they can use to jump over to solve their problem. And this is why positioning yourself as the affordable expert actually undermines your value. Like I said, nobody wants a budget chiropractor. Nobody wants a budget expert. People who think they have small problems are confident that they can pay somebody and tell them what to do. And they will pay somebody maybe for their time. But, as far as they're concerned, anybody can follow their directions. So they don't have to be an expert in it. They might pay somebody, but won't pay an expert or won't pay an expert price. And people who think they have a serious problem think you're probably not that confident for a reason. So, like I said, competitive doesn't mean cheap, it means confident. And people who try to have it both ways, to say I'm the best, but I'm also the cheapest, they basically undermine their value, right? That may seem harsh, and it is. And it may seem rash, and it is. But remember your own reluctance to send your kids to a cut price dentist. Maybe he's great. He just has no idea how to price. Lord knows I've worked with those. No. Hiring experts requires trust. And discount trust is no trust at all. Now, I promised to talk about raising your prices without losing clients. And let's start with new clients because they're easier to approach. Conventional wisdom recommends cautious, incremental adjustments and conservative conversations about value. But let's be honest, that approach isn't fast enough for today's world. Costs are rising everywhere. And when working with new clients, you basically need to start by projecting confidence more than you think is necessary. We are often our harshest critics. Focusing on flaws clients wouldn't have a prayer of noticing. So you set your clients' expectations high and always ask clients, what's the ideal outcome for you in this project? Now, that doesn't mean letting clients dictate the scope fully, especially new clients. Clients know their goals and budgets and deadlines, but usually have no idea whatsoever on how to achieve whatever they wanted to achieve. It's your responsibility to define the scope just as you would trust a surgeon to plan your operation without your input into the details. So, set expectations high and then present your offer confidently. Yes, some people will walk away from a higher than average price. That's not a tragedy. Remember magnets, right? Your pricing will attract the right clients while repelling the wrong ones. Basically, if you don't have a price that repels anyone, you also don't have a one that attracts anyone. The clients who walk away are usually those who can't afford you or believe they already know everything because their confidence is higher than their perceived problem level. You can see that they really need you and that they're in trouble. But as long as they don't see it, nothing's going to happen. These aren't the projects you want anyway. So trust me, if you don't have to work with clients like that, don't. Okay. Handling price changes with existing clients requires a different approach. First of all, and most important, never ambush them with sudden increases. I've seen this so many times. People fear talking about it and they want to maximize the number of months when everything is normal. And then they say, hi, we have a 40% higher price increase from next month. That's going to cost you. Gradual adjustments, like a 40% increase over 6 months, are far easier for clients to accept. Whatever you do, avoid asking, how do you feel about paying more? The answer, although more polite maybe, will always be no, unless, of course, they're already completely embarrassed by how little they've been paying you, and yes, that happens more often than you think. Instead, communicate clearly why the increase reflects the growing value you deliver and how it aligns with their interest. For example, when we started, the value and the price were balanced. Since then, the value has grown, as you can see here and here. And as you agreed a week ago, it doesn't really matter. And the price needs to reflect that, right? Never bring up your costs. The clients don't care. They don't care about your margins. They care about the gap between what they pay and the value they receive. That's it. If that gap has grown, that's your reason for adjusting the price. Costs, margins, internal challenges don't matter. And they shouldn't be a part of the conversation at all. Remember, confidence is key in pricing. It reinforces your value, while hesitation undermines it. If you seem unsure about either the new price or the value you deliver, clients will be even less certain and they'll start questioning the quality of your work. Like I said with David, so if you underpriced us so massively, why? What did you leave out? What's wrong? Right? And they can be paranoid because they don't really understand what you're doing. So they grow their own fear and they start second guessing, start trying to find the fault and be mad at you for no reason. Okay, here's an old pricing joke. I told my barber to double his prices and he panicked. Double my prices? I'd lose half my clients. And have the same revenue with half the work. Yeah, terrifying. Yet I've seen the exact fear in real life. The fear of losing clients over price increases is often exaggerated. Expertise-based services aren't like commodities, where a small price difference can cause clients to switch massively. No one debates which oranges to buy. Nobody really calls them their friends for a recommendation for a commodity, right? They're interchangeable. But would you feel the same way if somebody replaces your trusted lawyer or accountant? Probably not. And this is important. When you raise your price by 20%, you might assume that you'll lose 20% of your clients. But that's rarely true for expertise-based services. Price elasticity, as it's called by economists, applies to things like wheat or oil, not specialized services that you provide. I mean, price elasticity exists, but expertise-based services tend to be price inelastic. So if the difference between selling candy and selling medicine, both are small products you put it into your mouth to feel better, right? But one is interchangeable and susceptible to buyer flight with price increases and, tastes. Do you like this or you like that? And the other is just not. I've learned that most expertise-based services, just like medicines, have inelastic demand. That means that if you raise your price by 20%, you might lose 3% of your clients. The same applies to discounts. Watch out. Lower your price by 30%, and you'll likely gain only a few more clients. Right? Because if I wanted to buy medicine for my mom and I saw some of these medicines in a bargain bin, I would probably give them a skip. Because no, that's not something I'm going to, save money on. It's about trust. Many of my clients learned this the hard way during the pandemic. They dropped the price hoping to make it up in volume, and it absolutely did not materialize. So, let me explain why losing a few clients isn't a big deal. I've always noticed that many of us in the business of expertise undervalue our services. Initially, I blamed short-sighted clients and poor education, but I came across a key insight from Ulrich Leskov-Schmidt, a great SaaS pricing expert, and it completely changed my perspective. I realized I was missing a key piece of the puzzle, and let me explain. So picture your price and three types of clients. So type 2 clients think your price is fine. It's perfect, whatever. Type 1 clients think it's too high. And they're vocal about it. They'll tell you about it. If you lowered by this much, I would buy, and now you're losing my business. Okay. They make their dissatisfaction visible, and it becomes this visible loss, which is like a wound. You see it and it hurts. But there's another type. So type 3 clients who would happily pay more. They see you as a bargain, sometimes even an embarrassingly big one, right? The catch, they'll never tell you up front that they would be okay with paying more. So they create this invisible cancer of a loss. I mean, why would they tell you? They only realize it, usually, after the fact anyway, because remember how experiential goods work, right? So here's the problem. We focus so much on the visible loss, on type 1 clients who don't buy, that we miss the silent, invisible loss from type 3 clients who would have been fine paying more. And this invisible loss can be far greater than the visible one, right? So you don't have to offer more or work harder to address it. Often it's about communicating the value you already provide and have been doing for years to those who are happy to pay a premium. Okay, let's wrap it up. Remember the elephant tied to the post? It's not the post holding it back. It's the belief that it can't break free. That's how pricing feels for many of us. Fear of rejection, fear of losing clients, and the fear of doing it wrong keeps us tied down. But these fears aren't reality. They're just beliefs. And beliefs can change. Okay. So here's what you can do right now to start transforming your pricing. In your next conversation, try asking, what do you think I charge? This one question can reveal invaluable insights about how clients perceive your value. For your existing clients, plan a gradual price increase, explain it clearly, connect it to the growing value that you deliver. And finally, take a hard look at your client journey. Where are the instances where you can reduce hidden costs like inconvenience, risk, or ego to make your services feel more valuable without working more. When you start communicating your value clearly and pricing confidently, you'll attract clients who respect your work and value your expertise. You'll also stop feeling stuck in a cycle of overwork and undercharging, and wouldn't that be nice? So I want to leave you with this thought. You already have the strength to break free from the cage. Fear is the only thing that's holding you back, and fear is temporary. If you can push past it, you can if you can push past it, you do that on your own. If you can't, just reach out and book your discovery call with me. Your clients deserve to see the value that you bring, and you deserve to be paid for it fairly. Hi.
Hi. So I wanted to ask, what is your advice for generating leads or reaching out to clients without knowing how to find them first?
Okay. So in order to find them, you basically first have to decide who they are. So that's the first step. You can see who they are. I've seen people saying, oh, my type of client is anybody with a wallet stuffed with money, I just like doing what I'm doing. Whoever needs something like that, I can be their guy. However, that's like saying I'm going to go and catch fish. Which fish? Oh, I don't really care, right? And you get some good equipment for catching fish. You get a net for sardines and you get the bait for sharks, and you go to a place that's really good for like trout. You're not going to catch anything at all, basically. You're going to starve yourself. So, like I said with the genie wish, at least that, some good clients from the past say, okay, what are the characteristics of a client like that? What are the building blocks that made them a great client? So you might not find the clone, but you can find some people who are similar to them. Do they have a similar need? Do they need stuff in a similar manner or in a similar time frame? That can all work, right? I worked with a couple of people who basically modeled themselves into firemen. They only wish to work for clients who are on fire. The investors are pissed. The developers have gone home. The good ones have gotten other jobs. They keep shoveling on juniors who just run around like headless chickens and just make more problems. And it's about to go down. And then they come in, and then basically they do a triage. And when everybody stops screaming, 6 months down the line, wartime is over. They find somebody else to take over, and they're out. And they're extremely well paid for this, right? That's one way. So the first thing that you need to know is, who do you want to hunt? Who do you want to impress? And the second thing that you need to know is, who do you want them to compare you with? That's extremely important as well. Because we are all providing services. And services are what? Services are a promise of a better tomorrow, right? You can't really you can show them a portfolio, but yeah, you really can read into that portfolio much more than clients can. So yeah, this looks nice. How do I know you can solve my problem, right? Because like I said, if somebody's thinking about an expert, they have a problem, a burning one. So they want to see more than just pictures. So you can really affect where they see you, how they see you. This is why, if you go to I don't know, freelancer.com or something like that, you can't really charge much, because they can't really tell you apart by anything else but the price. So it's a race to the bottom. Sometimes they don't dare go with the cheapest ones. Sometimes they just risk it. So that's not a good channel if you want to feel valued, if you want to be valued, right? So to try to answer your question directly is, once you know who you want to go after and who do you want them to compare you with, and what are the factors that you want to be compared on, right? Then you can figure out which channels provide that for you. So where should the clients like that be able to stumble upon your existence? You being somebody who offers, right? And this can be something wild like Reddit. It can be something conventional like networking or writing on LinkedIn. For me, it's basically networking groups. That's how I got into Australia without ever traveling there, through networking groups and through publishing of content. And I do a lot of that. I do a lot of publishing and I get work from that. I don't advertise, I never did. I tried paying some people to, do cold calls and stuff like that. They were nice people and competent people. They couldn't help me at all. I spent so much money trying to do that. It just doesn't work. This is about trust and it's not about spamming. You can get lucky, of course, but you can't base it on that, right? So I can't really say publish in network because that's what works for me. Because when people are doubtful about when they should raise their prices or not, they're going to need somebody. They're either going to need a demonstration of my work first, or they need to hear from somebody else, not me. So if I call people and say, "Hi, do you need pricing advice?" No. Piss off. So, yeah, I hope I answered the question. Cool. We are 5 minutes over time. I'm happy to answer a few more questions if you have them. If not, I will put the recording on and I'll get all back with you. I wanted to show you just so this is something that I published a couple of days ago. So this is my new newsletter, but it's about the hidden leverage in negotiation that most professionals never use. This is how I work. This is how I write. It's very actionable. It's actual steps. It's you do this and you do this and you don't do that. And I hope you all find it useful. In general, there's all sorts of places where you can find my work. Thank you. Bye.